senior football writer Mark Ogden and the Daily Mail's football editor Ian Ladyman. Let's focus on a story which is across most of the back pages, it has to be said, for Saturday, that Marcus Rashford headlines a group of 5 Manchester United players who have been banished by Ruben Amorim, the head coach, ahead of the new season. He and Jadon Sancho, Alejandro Garnacho, Antony and Malacia as well. Ian Ladyman, no great surprise that any of those 5 don't have a significant future at the club. And I guess financially as well, there is a reason for Ruben Amorim to want rid of them, to try and regenerate the squad and continue building his own team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fascinating story, this, and the reason that I see it as being so is that this feels like a real line in the sand moment for Ruben Amorim, the Manchester United coach, a real stick or twist moment, and he's decided to twist. And what I mean by that is that when you've got players who you don't want and they don't want to be around, it's quite easy to hedge your bets and say, well, I'll keep them in the first team pool and I'll use them off the bench occasionally, and I might use them in the League Cup or whatever. That way, it stops the negative headlines. It prevents that feeling of tension and unrest, and it also gives you a bit of a bigger squad, and it keeps players potentially in the shop window. They might come off the bench and score a goal for you. Amorim has obviously thought, no, that's not the way that I'm going to do this. I think this is a coach who knows that what happens in the first few months of the season will essentially, it'll give him another lease of life, or at United, or will bury him, because we can't forget the way that last season went. You can't forget where they finished in the league. You can't forget what happened in the Europa League final. If United start badly this season, then that guy is under pressure and probably goes. And so he's obviously thought, if I'm going, then I'm not going to go wondering. I'm going to go on my terms. I'm going to go my way. I'm going to manage my way. These guys don't want to play for me. They tell me they don't want to play for me. They don't behave as though they want to play for me. So they're not playing for me, and they're not playing for me. No matter how badly I might need them on occasion, no matter how badly I might need a deep squad and a deep bench, they are not playing for me. This is my football club, and I will do it my way. It's brave. I admire him for it, but it also carries an element of risk.
To you, Mark, what would be, do you think, the biggest motivating factor for Amorim to want rid of them? Is it that the players don't fit the system? Is it, as Ian just alluded to, that maybe the attitude is not great for some of them? Or is it that some of them are on a lot of wages and they're costing club a lot of money to do not very much?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of all 3 things you mentioned there, because all players are different. But I do think that ultimately he doesn't want the distraction of being asked by people like us what's happening with Marcus Rashford. Is he going to go on the summer tour to the United States? Is Jadon Sancho going to go on the tour? Is he training with the first team? All these questions which kind of hung over Erik ten Hag last year with Sancho, that he's dealt with that. And I think it is good, strong management. I think United have backed him, but there is a downside to this, in the sense that there's 5 players there that United today have just basically cut their value, because everybody that might want to sign these players will know that they are damaged goods, and that United's valuation at 9 o'clock this morning is not the same as at 9 o'clock tonight, because they can't say we want X amount of pounds for Marcus Rashford when they're telling the whole world that he's not part of the plans. So they have a problem there, unless they know where these players are going. But I think it also makes it sure as well that in January, I think Marcus Rashford had a couple of options. AC Milan were interested, didn't fancy that. And he basically waited till the end of the window and signed for Aston Villa when it was clear that Barcelona didn't want him. Will Marcus Rashford be prepared to wait as long again when he knows that he's not going to kick a ball again for Man United? It might force the issue, but still I do think that United need to back this up now by getting rid of these players quickly. Otherwise, they'll have a problem in August, late August, when they're still in the books, they're still paying the wages and they can't get rid of them. So they need to move them on fast to prevent it becoming a distraction, which they've done this to avoid it becoming a distraction.
That concept, or that challenge of moving them on fast, again ties in with the finances, doesn't it? That if your option is to go somewhere else, but if you're Jadon Sancho and Marcus Rashford in particular, you might have to take a pay cut. You wonder whether you sit there for as long as possible on your 350 grand a week, or you say to Man United, well, if you want me to go, you can pay the rest of my contract, the differential between whatever my new club's going to offer me and what you're giving me now.
Without a doubt, somebody's going to have to take a backward step in these negotiations, and the chances are that it'll have to be Manchester United. That's usually the way that it works. I'll just take issue slightly with something that Mark just said there about cutting value, and I absolutely know what he means. United are essentially telling the world that these players are wrong-uns, for want of a better phrase. That's the way they obviously see them. But I don't think they will sell them. I'm not sure they can sell them. I think the majority of these will have to be loans again, because there aren't that many clubs out there who can go for a transfer fee for a player like Marcus Rashford, who earns the type of money that he earns, and go for the whole package. He's just not that valuable. So the chances are that some of these departures will once again be loans, and the whole merry-go-round will start again. United are going to find it desperately difficult to sell these players on the basis of the way they've played in the last couple of years, and just from a pure standpoint of pounds and pence, it does not add up.
Do you think, Mark, there was ever a temptation, particularly with Rashford, who was good on that loan spell with Aston Villa? Sancho was fine with Chelsea too, to give them a second chance? Or do you think that by the time that particularly Rashford left at the end of January, start of February, that his mind was made up on him that he was never going to play for Manchester United again?
Yeah, there was no way back for those two. I mean, Sancho had a poor season at Chelsea, and he's never done anything at Man United to warrant being given a third, fourth or fifth chance. And Marcus Rashford did do that well at Aston Villa. He scored 2 Premier League goals and a couple in the FA Cup against Preston. So, for a player that earns 325 grand a week, you'd expect more than 4 goals in 6 months. So I don't think Rashford did anything at Aston Villa to convince Ruben Amorim that he was wrong. So I think their future was sealed the moment they left Old Trafford, and there's no way back. And I think it's the same for the other 3 players. I think that the time's up. None of them are good enough for Man United in their current form. So move them on.
Part of the story in the Times, Ian, is that number 10 shirt has gone for Marcus Rashford. It's been handed to Matheus Cunha. I guess the flip side of what we've been talking about, how many more players do you think Manchester United are short of being challengers for, say, a Champions League spot next season?
Goodness me, I mean, anybody that you run into down your local will tell you that they need a centre forward, a world-class holding midfield player, a goalkeeper, another centre half, and a wide player.
Good.
And a wide player. Is that enough?
Everything's looking fine then.
Do you want me to go on? And look, Cunha is a fine signing in that he's a fine player. However, at the moment, it does feel a little bit like dropping a goldfish into a pond full of sharks and telling him to swim and make the difference, because one player ain't going to change that team on his own. Okay, so Cunha is a start. He's a start. That's what he is. But he's the first piece in a massive jigsaw puzzle, and there's an awful lot of pieces to put in that puzzle between now and the middle of August.
That's a rousing rallying cry for Manchester United fans to start the new season. There's the reality there.
It is late on a Friday.
Let's finish, Mark, with a bit of Wimbledon and the end of the line for Emma Ratakanu, beaten by the top seed Arina Sabalenka, but not before giving an encouraging account of herself.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, she lost in straight sets, but it was the world number 1. She gave it a really good fight, and I was watching this downstairs in the hotel in Philadelphia, and people were stood there watching. It was generating excitement because they thought there was a shock on, and a couple of times it looked like there was. She had a big lead in both sets and didn't hold on to it. But I think it's definitely promising in the sense that she's had her problems over the years. To go so close against the world number 1 is positive for the future. So it was a good night for Raducanu, apart from the result.
Yeah, just very, very briefly, a big day for the Lionesses, Ian Ladyman, as they start their Euros campaign. What chance of retaining their title?
Well, it's desperately difficult, isn't it? They've not been consistently convincing, really, ever since they thrilled us a few years ago at Wembley. So it's a big challenge for Serena and the Lionesses. If I had to put money on it, I'd say no. It's a very difficult job to win away from home. But I'm sure, there've been some big calls made before the tournament starts. I mean, the Mary Earps thing, I think, is still kind of resonating around the world of women's football to a degree. So we wish them well, but the challenge ahead of them is vast, I would say.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. If you missed any of the show, there is always the chance to catch up with Back Pages tonight at hour. And the show is also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. On the way with us on Sky Sports News, we'll round up all the day's transfer news. A 6-time Premier League champion, Kyle Walker, is heading back to the Premier League and newly promoted Burnley.